The stars twinkled like tiny diamonds in the night sky. But tonight, they weren't alone. A massive shadow loomed over Earth's atmosphere, a foreign shape that didn't belong to any human spacecraft. It was the Vraxians, an alien species humanity had never encountered before. Their arrival was sudden, unannounced, and terrifying. Commander Alex Carter stood on the bridge of the orbital defense station, staring at the screen in front of him. The image showed a colossal ship, larger than anything humans had ever built. Its surface shimmered with strange patterns that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Beside him, Chief Engineer Samantha Sam Brooks leaned forward, her eyes sharp as she studied the readings. "They're huge," Sam muttered under her breath, "and their energy signature is off the charts." Alex nodded but said nothing. He knew what everyone else on the station was thinking. Were these aliens here to talk or to fight? The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every crew member sat at their post, hands hovering over controls, ready for anything. A crackling sound filled the air as the Vraxians transmitted a message. On the main screen, a figure appeared. An alien with pale gray skin, glowing red eyes, and sharp ridges running down its skull. It spoke in a deep, guttural voice, translated instantly by the station's AI system. "I am Zorak of the Vraxian Empire," it said. "You are primitive beings, unworthy of this planet. Surrender now, or we will take it by force." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Murmurs rippled through the crew, but Alex raised a hand to silence them. His face remained calm, though his mind raced. These aliens clearly underestimated humanity. They had no idea what humans were capable of. "We're not surrendering," Alex replied firmly into the comms. "Earth belongs to us, and we'll defend it." Zorak tilted his head, almost amused. "Defend yourselves. With what?" "Your primitive ships and weak weapons." Sam clenched her fists but kept quiet. She knew better than to argue with arrogance when there was work to be done. Silently, she tapped commands into her console, activating the Quantum Disruption Array, or QDA, a secret weapon years in the making. Humanity hadn't shared this technology with anyone, not even its closest allies. If used correctly, it could disable enemy systems without firing a single shot. As Zorak sneered and ended the transmission, Alex turned to Sam. "Can it handle something that big?" "It has to," Sam said, her voice steady, despite the weight of the moment. "If it doesn't, we're out of options." Seconds later, the Vraxian ship began moving, its engines flaring brightly. Without warning, it fired a beam of energy straight at the orbital station. Alarms blared as shields absorbed the impact, but everyone braced for another hit. "Now or never," Alex said. Sam pressed the activation button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Vraxian ship shuddered violently, its lights flickering. The once mighty vessel slowed to a halt, floating helplessly in space. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Alex raised a hand again. "Don't celebrate yet," he warned. "This isn't over." He was right. Through the viewport, they could see smaller ships launching from the Vraxian mothership, heading straight toward Earth. Whatever happened next, humanity would need more than just one trick up its sleeve to survive. The orbital defense station was alive with tension. The crews scrambled to their stations, their faces pale but determined. Commander Alex Carter stood at the center of the chaos, his eyes glued to the main screen. Dozens of small Vraxian ships were breaking away from the disabled mothership, heading directly toward Earth. "They're not giving up," muttered Lieutenant Maria Lopez, her voice tight as she monitored the incoming vessels. "What do we do now?" Alex didn't answer right away. His mind raced through possibilities. The Quantum Disruption Array had worked on the mothership, but it wasn't designed to handle so many smaller targets at once. If they couldn't stop these ships, Earth would be in grave danger. Chief Engineer Samantha Sam Brooks leaned over her console, typing furiously. She knew they needed a plan, and fast. "We can recalibrate the QDA to target clusters of ships," she said, glancing up at Alex. "But it'll take time." "How much time?" Alex asked sharply. 10 minutes, maybe more, Sam replied. And even then, I'm not sure how effective it'll be against faster-moving targets. Alex nodded. Do it. In the meantime, prepare the station's cannons. We'll hold them off as long as we can. The crew sprang into action. Weapons officers manned their stations, fingers hovering over triggers. The orbital station wasn't just a defensive platform. It was armed with plasma turrets capable of tearing through enemy hulls. But everyone knew that firepower alone wouldn't be enough. The Vraxians outnumbered them, and their ships were heavily armored. As the alien fighters drew closer, Zorak's voice crackled over the comms once again. You think your little trick will save you? You are insects compared to us. Alex ignored him. He focused instead on the tactical display showing the approaching fleet. Target the lead ships first, he ordered. If we can break their formation, it'll slow them down. Seconds later, the station's cannons roared to life, unleashing bursts of blue energy into space. 2 Vraxian fighters exploded instantly, sending debris spiraling into the void. Cheers erupted among the crew, but the victory was short-lived. More ships kept coming, undeterred by the loss. Maria clenched her teeth as she tracked the enemy movements. They're adapting, she warned. Their shields are holding up better than expected. Sam cursed under her breath. She was still working on recalibrating the QDA, sweat dripping down her forehead. Almost there, she whispered to herself. Her hands moved quickly across the keyboard, adjusting frequencies and power levels. Meanwhile, Alex made a decision. Launch drones, he commanded. Send everything we've got. Small, sleek drones shot out from the station, guided by advanced AI systems. They darted between the enemy ships, firing precision shots and creating chaos in the Vraxian ranks. For a moment, it seemed like the tide might turn in humanity's favor. But then something unexpected happened. One of the Vraxian ships fired back. A beam of green energy struck one of the station's turrets, disabling it instantly. Alarms blared as sparks flew across the bridge. Damage report, Alex barked. A turret is offline, but no casualties, Maria reported quickly. Shields are holding, for now. Alex gritted his teeth. They couldn't keep this up forever. Every second felt like an eternity as Sam worked desperately to finish her task. Finally, she looked up, her face flushed but triumphant. It's ready, she said. Activate it, Alex ordered without hesitation. Sam pressed the button, and the QDA hummed to life. A wave of invisible energy surged outward, targeting the clustered Vraxian ships. One by one, their engines sputtered and died. Shields flickered and collapsed. Within moments, dozens of alien vessels floated dead in space, completely immobilized. The bridge fell silent for a beat before erupting into cheers. The crew hugged each other, relief washing over them. But Alex remained calm, staring at the screen. Zorak's mothership was still out there, damaged but not destroyed. And Alex knew this battle was far from over. They'll regroup, he said quietly. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Back on Earth, the situation was tense. News of the battle in space spread quickly, thanks to live satellite feeds and social media. People gathered around televisions and phones, watching footage of the orbital defense station firing at alien ships. Some cheered at humanity's unexpected success, while others feared what might come next. In a secure underground bunker, President Laura Hayes sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by her top advisors. General Ryan Mitchell, a gruff man with steel-gray hair, leaned forward, his face grim. "We got lucky this time," he said, his voice low but firm. "But we can't count on luck forever. Those aliens will come back stronger." Dr. Emily Dawson, the lead scientist behind the Quantum Disruption Array, QDA, shook her head. She was younger than most of the people in the room, with sharp green eyes and an air of quiet confidence. "Luck had nothing to do with it," she said. "The QDA worked exactly as designed. We have the technology to defend ourselves, if we use it wisely. President Hayes rubbed her temples, looking tired. And that's the problem, isn't it? Every weapon we reveal gives them more information about us. What happens when they adapt? The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone knew the stakes. Humanity had just shown its hand to an unknown enemy. If the Vraxians figured out how to counter the QDA, Earth would be vulnerable. General Mitchell sighed. Maybe it's time to consider diplomacy. If we keep pushing, they'll see us as a threat and hit harder next time. Emily slammed her fist lightly on the table. No, they attacked us first. We showed them we're not weak, and now they respect us, or at least fear us. Backing down now would make us look like cowards. Laura raised a hand to quiet them. Enough. Arguing won't solve anything. She turned to Lieutenant Commander Robert Hale, who stood near the door. What's the status of our fleet? Hale stepped forward, his posture stiff. Most of our ships are still docked for repairs after recent drills. Only a few are combat ready. But even if we mobilized everything, we'd be outnumbered. Laura frowned. The truth was clear. Humanity wasn't ready for a full-scale war. Not yet. We need intel, she said finally. Find out why they're here. What do they want? Are there more of them? Until we understand their motives, we're fighting blind. At that moment, a young officer rushed into the room, holding a tablet. Madam President, we've intercepted new data from the battle zone, he said breathlessly. Our sensors picked up traces of resource extraction equipment on the disabled fraction ships. Emily's eyes widened. Resource extraction? You mean they're mining planets? The officer nodded. Yes, ma'am. It looks like they've been stripping materials from nearby star systems. There's evidence of advanced tech scavenged from other civilizations too. Laura leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. So they're not just conquerors, they're scavengers. That changes things. General Mitchell crossed his arms. Or maybe it doesn't. Whether they're here for resources or domination, the result is the same. They see us as obstacles. Emily shook her head again. Not necessarily. If they're scavengers, they might value efficiency over brute force. Maybe there's a way to negotiate without appearing weak. Laura tapped her fingers on the table, weighing the options. Finally, she spoke. Prepare 2 plans. First, reinforce the orbital defenses and ready the fleet for another attack. Second, draft a message to the Vraxians, something firm but not hostile. Let's see if they're willing to talk. As the meeting broke up, Emily lingered behind. She stared at the screen showing the disabled Vraxian ships, her mind racing. Something about this didn't add up. Why would such an advanced species rely on stolen tech instead of creating their own? And why target Earth now, after centuries of silence? She whispered to herself, almost too quiet to hear. Who's really pulling the strings here? Commander Alex Carter stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. The Vraxian mothership was still up there, damaged but dangerous. He knew they couldn't afford to wait for the aliens to regroup. Humanity needed answers. And fast. Send a recon team, Alex said suddenly, turning to his crew. We need eyes inside that ship. Lieutenant Daniel "Danny" Cole, a young officer with a knack for stealth missions, stepped forward. Sir, I volunteer, he said firmly. Danny had always been eager to prove himself, and this was his chance. Alex hesitated for a moment before nodding. Take 3 others. Use cloaking tech. Get in, gather intel, and get out. No heroics. Danny nodded sharply and turned to assemble his team. Joining him were Private Jake Harper, an expert in alien tech, Corporal Lisa Chen, a skilled medic, and Sergeant Mark Rivera, who specialized in close-quarters combat. Each of them donned suits equipped with advanced nanotech cloaking devices designed by Chief Engineer Sam Brooks. These suits would render them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. As the team prepared, Sam approached Danny. Her face was serious as she handed him a small device. This is a data scanner, she explained. It'll download anything you point it at. Maps, logs, whatever. Be careful where you use it, though. It might trigger alarms if you're not quick." Danny took the device and gave her a confident smile. "Don't worry, Sam. We'll be fine." Sam didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue. Instead, she patted his shoulder. "Just come back in one piece." Minutes later, the team boarded a small shuttle and launched toward the disabled Vraxian mothership. The massive vessel loomed ahead, its surface scarred from the earlier battle. As they approached, the cloaking devices activated, hiding the shuttle from view. Inside the alien ship, the air was cold and metallic. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, casting eerie shadows. The team moved cautiously, sticking to the edges of corridors to avoid detection. Every sound, the hum of machinery, the distant clanking of footsteps, made them flinch. "This place gives me the creeps," Jake muttered under his breath. "Focus," Danny whispered back. "We're here for answers, not sightseeing." They reached what appeared to be a control room. Lisa kept watch while Danny used the data scanner on a console. The device beeped softly as it began downloading information. Suddenly, the lights flickered and a low alarm sounded. "Oh," Mark said, gripping his weapon tightly. "I think we've been spotted." Before anyone could react, a group of Vraxian soldiers entered the room. Their glowing red eyes scanned the area, searching for intruders. The humans held their breath, counting on the cloaking tech to keep them hidden. One of the aliens paused near Danny, sniffing the air like a predator sensing prey. Danny's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay still. After what felt like an eternity, the Vraxians left, muttering in their guttural language. "That was too close," Lisa breathed once they were gone. "We need to move," Danny said urgently. "Now." The team hurried deeper into the ship, following the map downloaded from the console. They eventually found themselves in a large storage bay, filled with crates and strange equipment. Jake examined one of the crates and gasped. "Look at this," he said, holding up a piece of alien weaponry. "This isn't Vraxian tech. It's different." "What do you mean?" Danny asked, frowning. "It's scavenged," Jake replied, "from other species. This gun looks like it came from the Zorathians, a race wiped out decades ago." Danny's stomach churned. The implications were clear. The Vraxians weren't just conquerors. They were thieves, stealing technology from civilizations they destroyed. And Earth might be next. "We need to get this info back to Alex," Danny said, his voice tight with urgency. As they made their way back to the shuttle, the team couldn't shake the feeling that they'd stumbled onto something far bigger than they'd imagined. The Vraxians weren't acting alone. Someone, or something, was pulling their strings, and humanity was running out of time to find out who. Back aboard the orbital defense station, tensions were rising. The recon team had yet to return, and the crew was growing restless. Commander Alex Carter paced the bridge, his mind heavy with worry. Every second felt like an eternity as they waited for news from Lieutenant Danny Cole and his team. In the meantime, Captain Robert Hale was growing increasingly vocal about his doubts. He stood near the tactical display, arms crossed, his expression dark. "We're playing a dangerous game," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Sending people into that ship without knowing what's waiting for them. It's reckless." Alex stopped pacing and turned to face him. "Do you have a better idea?" he asked, his tone sharp. "If we don't gather intel, we're flying blind." Hale shook his head. "I'm not saying we shouldn't fight. I'm saying we should negotiate before it's too late. The Vraxians are clearly stronger than us in numbers. If we keep pushing, they'll crush us." The room grew quiet as the crew listened to the argument. Some nodded in agreement with Hale, while others sided with Alex. The divide was clear, and it was starting to affect morale. Before Alex could respond, the communications officer shouted, "Sir, incoming transmission from the recon team." Relief washed over Alex's face as he rushed to the comm station. "Cole, report," he ordered. Danny's voice came through, strained but steady. "We're on our way back, sir. But we found something vague. These aliens aren't working alone. They've been scavenging tech from other species they've wiped out. Whoever's pulling their strings is using them as tools." Alex frowned. "Understood. Get back here safely. We'll debrief when you arrive." As the transmission ended, Hale stepped forward again. His voice was calm but firm. "This proves my point. If the Vraxians are just pawns, then we need to find a way to talk to whoever's really in charge. Fighting won't solve anything." Alex clenched his jaw. "And if talking doesn't work, what then? We roll over and let them take Earth?" "No," Hale replied. "But there's no shame in seeking peace before resorting to war." The argument escalated, drawing more attention from the crew. Tempers flared, and voices grew louder. Chief Engineer Sam Brooks finally intervened, stepping between the two men. "Enough," she snapped. "Arguing isn't going to help anyone. We need to focus on what matters, protecting Earth." Her words seemed to calm the room, but the tension remained. Hale glared at Alex one last time before storming off the bridge. Moments later, the shuttle carrying Danny's team docked with the station. The crew erupted into cheers as the team stepped off, looking exhausted but alive. Danny handed Alex a data drive containing everything they'd gathered. "This should tell us more about who's behind all this," he said. But before Alex could review the data, alarms blared throughout the station. On the main screen, a human cruiser appeared, Captain Hale's ship. It was moving away from the fleet, heading directly toward the Vraxian mothership. "What's he doing?" Alex demanded, his voice tight with anger. Maria Lopez, the communications officer, quickly patched through a message. Hale's voice came over the speakers, calm and deliberate. "I'm negotiating peace," he said, "for Earth's sake." Alex slammed his fist on the console. "He's compromising everything. If he gives them our location or any intel." "We can't let him do this," Sam interrupted. "Not after everything we've risked." Alex nodded grimly. "Prepare a boarding party. We're stopping him before he hands humanity's future to the enemy." Commander Alex Carter moved quickly, his mind racing as he issued orders. "Ready a team," he said sharply. "We're boarding Hale's cruiser before he reaches the Vraxians." Lieutenant Danny Cole stepped forward immediately. "I'm in, sir," he said without hesitation. Alex nodded. "Take your recon team. Use the same cloaked shuttle. We can't let Hale see us coming." Sam Brooks approached Alex, her face tense. "You know this is risky," she said quietly. "If Hale realizes we're onto him, he might accelerate his plan, or worse, sabotage us." "I know," Alex replied, his voice firm. "But we can't let him hand over Earth's secrets, not after everything we fought for." The boarding team scrambled into action. Danny, Jake, Lisa, and Mark climbed back into the cloaked shuttle, their nerves taut but their determination unwavering. As they launched toward Hale's cruiser, the massive alien mothership loomed ahead, its shadow stretching across space like a predator waiting to strike. Inside Hale's cruiser, Captain Robert Hale sat in the command chair, his expression grim but resolute. His crew moved around him, preparing for what he called a mission of peace. Hale knew his actions would be controversial, but he believed it was the only way to save humanity from destruction. He didn't trust the Vraxians, not entirely, but he trusted brute force even less. Approaching enemy ship, one of the crew members reported, "They're hailing us." Hale nodded. "Put them through." On the screen, Zorak appeared once again, his glowing red eyes narrowing suspiciously. "Why have you come?" he demanded. "To negotiate," Hale replied calmly. "My people don't want war. We seek an alliance, on equal terms." Zorak tilted his head, clearly intrigued. "And what do you offer in return?" Before Hale could answer, alarms blared throughout the cruiser. "Commander," one of the crew shouted. "Unknown vessel detected nearby." Danny's team had docked with the cruiser undetected, thanks to the cloaking tech. They moved silently through the corridors, avoiding patrols as they made their way to the bridge. The tension was palpable. Every step felt like walking on thin ice. "Keep moving," Danny whispered to his team. "We don't have much time." On the bridge, Hale frowned at the alert. "It's probably nothing," he muttered. But deep down, he suspected otherwise. Moments later, the boarding team burst into the room, weapons drawn. "Stand down, Hale," Alex ordered, stepping forward. His voice was cold and authoritative. Hale stared at him, shocked. "What are you doing here?" "This isn't your decision to make. It stopped being about decisions when you decided to betray us." Alex shot back. "Now power down the engines and surrender control of this ship." Hale hesitated, his jaw tightening. For a moment, it seemed like he might resist, but then he sighed, lowering his head in defeat. "Do what you want," he said bitterly. "But mark my words, you're making a mistake." As the boarding team secured the bridge, Sam accessed the cruiser's systems remotely. Her eyes widened as she scanned the data. "Alex, you need to see this," she said urgently. "What is it?" he asked, stepping closer. He was transmitting coordinates, Sam explained. "Earth's location. It looks like he encrypted most of it, but some of the data got through." Alex cursed under his breath. "Can we stop it?" "I'll try," Sam replied, typing furiously. "But we'll need to act fast." Meanwhile, on the Vraxian mothership, Zorak studied the partial transmission with growing interest. Though incomplete, the data confirmed something crucial. Earth was still vulnerable, and ripe for conquest. Back on the cruiser, Alex turned to Hale, his expression hard. "You just gave them what they needed to find us," he said. "Was it worth it?" Hale looked away, guilt flickering across his face. But before anyone could say more, Lisa interrupted. "Sir, we've got incoming signals. Multiple ships, heading our way." Alex clenched his fists. Time was running out. "Let's get back to the station," he ordered, "and prepare for whatever comes next." As the team boarded the shuttle, one thing was clear. Humanity's fight was far from over, and every choice carried consequences that could change the fate of Earth forever. The orbital defense station was a hive of activity as the crew scrambled to prepare for the incoming threat. Commander Alex Carter stood on the bridge, his face set in a hard expression. The radar showed dozens of Vraxian ships moving toward them at high speed. They had no time to waste. "Shields up," Alex ordered sharply. "Divert all available power to weapons and engines." Sam Brooks worked quickly at her console, rerouting energy from non-essential systems. Her hands moved with precision, but her mind raced. She knew they were outnumbered and outgunned. If the Vraxians broke through their defenses, Earth would be exposed. Maria Lopes monitored the enemy fleet's movements, her voice trembling slightly as she reported, "They're spreading out, sir. Looks like they're trying to surround us." Alex nodded grimly. "Then we'll hit them before they can form a blockade." He turned to Danny Cole, who stood nearby. "Lieutenant, take your team and man the plasma turrets. Focus fire on their lead ships." Danny saluted and hurried off, rallying his team. As they took their positions, the station's cannons roared to life, unleashing bursts of blue energy into space. Several Vraxian fighters exploded instantly, but more kept coming, relentless and determined. On the main screen, Zorak appeared once again, his glowing red eyes filled with fury. "You dare attack us after your betrayal," he snarled. "Your world will burn for this." Alex didn't respond. Instead, he focused on the tactical display, analyzing the enemy's movements. "Keep targeting their engines," he instructed. "If we can disable enough ships, they'll lose momentum." But the Vraxians weren't easy targets. Their shields absorbed most of the plasma blasts, and their ships maneuvered skillfully to avoid concentrated fire. One by one, they closed the distance, launching their own attacks. A barrage of alien missiles struck the station's outer hull, shaking the entire structure. Alarms blared as sparks flew across the bridge. "Damage report," Alex barked. Outer shield layer is down, Maria replied, her voice tight. Inner shield's holding, for now. Sam clenched her fists. We can't keep this up forever. We need something bigger. Alex hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. Activate Project Prometheus, he said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Project Prometheus was humanity's ultimate weapon, a classified arsenal designed to turn the tide of any battle. But using it came at a cost, both morally and strategically. Are you sure about this, sir? Sam asked, her voice tinged with concern. We don't have a choice, Alex replied firmly. If we don't stop them here, Earth is finished. Sam nodded and began activating the system. On the tactical display, icons representing advanced drones, plasma cannons, and AI-driven interceptors lit up. These weapons were years ahead of anything the Vraxians had seen so far. As the first wave of drones launched, they darted between the enemy ships with incredible speed, firing precision shots that crippled several vessels. The plasma cannons followed, unleashing devastating beams of energy that sliced through alien hulls like paper. Zorak's voice crackled over the comms, laced with panic. What is this sorcery? How are you doing this? Alex ignored him, watching as the tide of the battle began to shift. The Vraxian fleet faltered, their numbers dwindling under the relentless assault. But just when victory seemed within reach, something unexpected happened. One of the remaining Vraxian ships fired a massive beam of green energy directly at the orbital station. The impact rocked the entire structure, sending crew members sprawling to the floor. Alarms screamed as critical systems failed. We've lost primary power, Maria shouted. Backup systems are offline. Alex grabbed the edge of a console to steady himself. His heart pounded as he realized the gravity of the situation. Without power, the station's defenses would collapse, and Earth would be left unprotected. Sam frantically worked to restore power, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm trying to reroute emergency reserves, she said, her voice strained. But it's not enough. Alex turned to her, his expression resolute. Then we'll have to finish this the old-fashioned way. He grabbed a headset and opened a channel to the entire fleet. All units, regroup on my mark. We're taking the fight to them, one last time. As the surviving human ships formed up behind the station, Alex gave the order to charge directly into the heart of the Vraxian fleet. It was a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance to survive. For better or worse, humanity's fate now rested in the hands of its bravest defenders. The human fleet surged forward, engines blazing as they charged into the heart of the Vraxian armée. Commander Alex Carter gripped the edge of his console, his eyes locked on the tactical display. Every ship in the fleet was operating at full capacity, pushing themselves to the limit. It was a desperate move, but one born out of necessity. Fire everything we've got, Alex ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Target their command ships first. The plasma cannons roared again, unleashing torrents of energy that tore through the enemy ranks. Advanced drones darted between the alien vessels, crippling their engines and disabling their weapons systems. For a moment, it seemed like humanity might actually win this impossible fight. But then something changed. The largest Vraxian ship, a towering behemoth covered in jagged armor, began moving toward the center of the battlefield. Its surface shimmered with an eerie green glow, and its massive cannons hummed with power. What is that thing? Maria Lopes asked, her voice trembling as she monitored the readings. Sam Brooks stared at her console, her face pale. It's some kind of super weapon, she said grimly. If it fires, it could wipe out the entire fleet. Alex clenched his fists. They couldn't let that happen. All units, focus fire on that ship, he barked. Take it down before it activates. The human ships redirected their attacks, unleashing everything they had at the monstrous vessel. Plasma beams and missiles struck its hull, but the damage seemed minimal. The glowing green light grew brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. They're powering it up. Sam shouted. "We don't have much time." Danny Cole and his team worked frantically at the plasma turrets, firing non-stop at the looming threat. Sweat dripped down their faces as they pushed the weapons to their limits. But no matter how many shots they landed, the Vraxian ship kept coming. On the main screen, Zorak appeared once more, his expression smug. "You cannot stop what comes next," he sneered. "Your end is here." Alex ignored him, focusing instead on the battle. He turned to Sam. "Is there anything we can do? Any way to disrupt it?" Sam hesitated, her mind racing. Then her eyes lit up. "There's one option," she said quickly. "The singularity bomb. If we detonate it near their ship, the resulting black hole could pull them in and destroy them." Alex frowned. The singularity bomb was humanity's most devastating weapon, capable of collapsing entire planets into oblivion. Using it meant risking not only the lives of everyone aboard the fleet, but also potentially destabilizing the region of space itself. "It's too dangerous," Maria whispered, voicing what everyone else was thinking. "We don't have a choice," Alex replied firmly. "If we don't use it, Earth is finished." Sam nodded and began activating the bomb. Her hands trembled slightly as she entered the final commands. "Once I activate it, we'll have 5 minutes to get clear," she warned. "If we're caught in the blast radius." "I know," Alex interrupted. "Everyone, prepare for immediate retreat. Launch all remaining drones to cover our escape." As the countdown began, the human fleet broke formation, retreating as fast as their engines would allow. Drones swarmed around the Vraxian superweapon, drawing its fire and buying precious seconds. The glowing green light intensified, signaling that the weapon was moments away from firing. "Bomb is armed," Sam announced, her voice tight. "Detonation in 4 minutes." Alex opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, fall back now. Repeat, fall back immediately." The human vessels accelerated, leaving behind a trail of debris and smoke. Behind them, the Vraxian ship loomed larger than ever, its cannon charging for a final, catastrophic shot. 3 minutes, Sam said, her eyes glued to the timer. Danny and his team watched anxiously from their positions, knowing they were gambling with their lives. The station shook violently as another wave of alien missiles struck its weakened hull. 2 minutes, Sam called out. Maria gripped her console tightly, tears streaming down her face. She knew the odds of survival were slim, but she refused to give up hope. 1 minute, Sam whispered, her voice barely audible over the alarms. Finally, the bomb detonated. A blinding flash of light filled the void of space as a miniature black hole formed, pulling everything nearby into its crushing grasp. The Vraxian superweapon was torn apart, along with dozens of smaller ships caught in the gravitational pull. When the light faded, silence filled the battlefield. The human fleet hovered at a safe distance, battered but alive. On the bridge of the orbital defense station, Alex exhaled slowly, his shoulders heavy with relief and guilt. They had won, but at a terrible cost. And as the crew began assessing the damage, one question lingered in everyone's minds. How long until the next enemy came? The aftermath of the battle was eerily quiet. The human fleet drifted in space, surrounded by the wreckage of Vraxian ships and debris from their own damaged vessels. Commander Alex Carter stood on the bridge, staring at the void where the Vraxian superweapon had once been. His hands were clenched tightly behind his back, and his face was lined with exhaustion. "We did it," Maria Lopes said softly, breaking the silence. Her voice wavered, a mix of relief and disbelief. Alex nodded slowly. "For now," he replied. His tone was heavy, carrying the weight of what they had just done. The singularity bomb had saved them, but it had also destroyed countless lives, both Vraxian and innocent. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a line, one that might haunt humanity for years to come. Sam Brooks approached him, her expression grim. "Sir, we need to assess the damage. Half our systems are offline, and the station's hull is compromised. If another attack comes, We won't survive." Alex turned to her, his eyes sharp. "Then we fix it. We don't have time to rest." Danny Cole entered the bridge, his uniform streaked with soot and sweat. "The crew's working as fast as they can," he reported, "but morale is low. Everyone's shaken." "I know," Alex said quietly. He looked around the room, at the tired faces of his team. They had fought bravely, pushed beyond their limits, and somehow emerged victorious. But victory felt hollow when the cost was so high. As repairs began, Sam analyzed the data recovered from the Vraxian ships. She frowned as she pieced together fragments of their communications. "There's something here," she said, her voice tense. Zorik mentioned an overlord, the Dominion. "It seems like the Vraxians weren't acting alone." Alex straightened, his interest piqued. "What do you mean?" "They were following orders," Sam explained. "The Dominion is some kind of higher power, a force controlling the Vraxians and possibly other species. That's why they were scavenging tech and resources. They weren't building their own empire. They were feeding someone else's." Maria gasped. "So there's more out there. More enemies." "It's worse than that," Sam continued. "If the Dominion finds out about Earth, they'll see us as a threat. And if they're behind centuries of technological stagnation across the galaxy, we're in serious trouble." Alex rubbed his temples, thinking hard. Humanity had just taken its first steps into the galactic stage, and already they were facing an enemy far greater than anyone had imagined. "We need answers," he said finally. "And we need allies. If the Dominion controls this part of the galaxy, then there must be others who oppose them." Danny stepped forward. "You're suggesting we go after the Vraxians' homeworld?" "Yes," Alex replied firmly. "If we can find evidence of the Dominion, or better yet, locate their stronghold, we might stand a chance. But it'll be dangerous." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They were battered and weary, but no one argued. They knew Alex was right. Running wouldn't solve anything. If humanity wanted to survive, they needed to take the fight to the enemy. Over the next few days, the fleet worked tirelessly to repair the station and prepare for the journey ahead. Supplies were rationed, weapons were upgraded, and every available hand contributed to the effort. Morale improved slightly as the crew focused on the mission, finding strength in their shared purpose. Finally, the day came to leave. Alex gathered the senior staff on the bridge for a final briefing. "This isn't just about revenge or survival," he said, looking each of them in the eye. "It's about proving that humanity belongs in the stars. We've shown we can defend ourselves. Now we need to show we can lead." As the fleet set course for the Vraxian homeworld, everyone aboard knew the risks. The journey would be long, and the odds of success were slim. But they also knew one thing for certain. Giving up wasn't an option. Not now. Not ever. In the vastness of space, the human fleet moved forward, driven by hope, determination, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest spark could ignite a fire bright enough to light the galaxy. The journey to the Vraxian homeworld was long and grueling. The human fleet traveled through uncharted space, their ships battered but holding together thanks to relentless repairs. Commander Alex Carter spent most of his time on the bridge, staring at the stars as they passed by. He knew the crew was counting on him to stay strong, but the weight of leadership was heavy. Every decision he made could mean life or death, for his people and for Earth. As they approached the Vraxian system, tension filled the air. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, emerging near a massive planet surrounded by defensive satellites and patrol ships. It was clear the Vraxians weren't expecting visitors. They had grown complacent in their isolation. "Shields up," Alex ordered. "Prepare for engagement." Sam Brooks monitored the sensors, her face pale but focused. "Their defenses are strong, sir. If we rush in, we'll lose ships." Alex nodded. "Then we'll need to be smarter than them." He turned to Danny Cole. "Lieutenant, take a small team and disable those satellites. Use cloaking tech. Keep it quiet." Danny saluted and gathered his team. They launched in a cloaked shuttle, slipping past the outer defenses undetected. With precision, they planted explosives on key satellites, crippling the Vraxians' ability to track the fleet. By the time the enemy realized what was happening, it was too late. The battle began with a barrage of plasma fire from the human ships. The Vraxians fought back fiercely, their fighters swarming like insects. But humanity's advanced weapons gave them an edge. Plasma cannons tore through enemy hulls, and AI-driven drones outmaneuvered the alien ships at every turn. On the bridge, Alex watched the tactical display, his jaw clenched. "Target their command centers," he said. "We need to cut off their leadership." Maria Lopez relayed the orders, her voice steady despite the chaos. The fleet concentrated its fire on a massive structure orbiting the planet, a fortress bristling with weapons. After several direct hits, the fortress exploded in a fiery burst, sending shockwaves through the system. But victory came at a cost. Several human ships were lost, their crews sacrificing everything to protect the fleet. Alex bowed his head in silence, honoring their bravery. When the dust settled, the Vraxian forces were in disarray. Zorak's voice crackled over the comms, desperate and broken. "You cannot win against the Dominion," he screamed. "They will destroy you." Alex ignored him, focusing instead on the data streaming in from the ruins of the fortress. Sam analyzed it quickly, her eyes widening. "Sir, this confirms it. The Dominion is real. They've been manipulating civilizations for centuries, keeping them weak while hoarding power for themselves." Alex frowned. "Do we know where they are?" Sam hesitated. "There's a location, deep in uncharted space. It's heavily fortified. But if we can get there—" Alex didn't hesitate. "Set course. We're finishing this." Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes addressed the world. She stood before cameras, her expression calm but resolute. "Today, humanity has taken its place among the stars," she said. "We have shown courage, ingenuity, and unity. But our journey is far from over. The road ahead will be difficult, but I believe in us. Together, we will build a future where no one dictates our fate, not invaders, not tyrants, and certainly not fear." As the fleet prepared to leave the Vraxian system, Alex gathered his crew for one last speech. "This isn't just about winning a war," he said. "It's about proving that humanity deserves a seat at the table. We've earned it, with blood, sweat, and sacrifice. Let's make sure it counts." With renewed determination, the fleet set off toward the Dominion's stronghold. The odds were against them, but they faced the unknown with hope in their hearts. For the first time, humanity wasn't just fighting to survive. It was fighting to shape its destiny among the stars. And as the ships disappeared into the vastness of space, one thing was certain. Humanity's greatest achievements lay not in conquest, but in the courage to stand together and reach for something greater. The journey to the Vraxian homeworld was long and grueling. The human fleet traveled through uncharted space, their ships battered but holding together thanks to relentless repairs. Commander Alex Carter spent most of his time on the bridge, staring at the stars as they passed by. He knew the crew was counting on him to stay strong, but the weight of leadership was heavy. Every decision he made could mean life or death, for his people and for Earth. As they approached the Vraxian system, tension filled the air. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, emerging near a massive planet surrounded by defensive satellites and patrol ships. It was clear the Vraxians weren't expecting visitors. They had grown complacent in their isolation. "Shields up," Alex ordered. "Prepare for engagement." Sam Brooks monitored the sensors, her face pale but focused. "Their defenses are strong, sir. If we rush in, we'll lose ships." Alex nodded. "Then we'll need to be smarter than them." He turned to Danny Cole. "Lieutenant, take a small team and disable those satellites. Use cloaking tech. Keep it quiet." Danny saluted and gathered his team. They launched in a cloaked shuttle, slipping past the outer defenses undetected. With precision, they planted explosives on key satellites, crippling the Vraxians' ability to track the fleet. By the time the enemy realized what was happening, it was too late. The battle began with a barrage of plasma fire from the human ships. The Varaxians fought back fiercely, their fighters swarming like insects. But humanity's advanced weapons gave them an edge. Plasma cannons tore through enemy hulls, and AI-driven drones outmaneuvered the alien ships at every turn. On the bridge, Alex watched the tactical display, his jaw clenched. "Target their command centers," he said. "We need to cut off their leadership." Maria Lopez relayed the orders, her voice steady despite the chaos. The fleet concentrated its fire on a massive structure orbiting the planet, a fortress bristling with weapons. After several direct hits, the fortress exploded in a fiery burst, sending shockwaves through the system. But victory came at a cost. Several human ships were lost, their crews sacrificing everything to protect the fleet. Alex bowed his head in silence, honoring their bravery. When the dust settled, the Varaxian forces were in disarray. Zorek's voice crackled over the comms, desperate and broken. "You cannot win against the Dominion," he screamed. "They will destroy you." Alex ignored him, focusing instead on the data streaming in from the ruins of the fortress. Sam analyzed it quickly, her eyes widening. "Sir, this confirms it. The Dominion is real. They've been manipulating civilizations for centuries, keeping them weak while hoarding power for themselves." Alex frowned. "Do we know where they are?" Sam hesitated. "There's a location, deep in uncharted space. It's heavily fortified. But if we can get there..." Alex didn't hesitate. "Set course. We're finishing this." Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes addressed the world. She stood before cameras, her expression calm but resolute. "Today, humanity has taken its place among the stars," she said. "We have shown courage, ingenuity, and unity. But our journey is far from over. The road ahead will be difficult, but I believe in us. Together, we will build a future where no one dictates our fate, not invaders, not tyrants, and certainly not fear." As the fleet prepared to leave the Varaxian system, Alex gathered his crew for one last speech. "This isn't just about winning a war," he said. "It's about proving that humanity deserves a seat at the table. We've earned it, with blood, sweat, and sacrifice. Let's make sure it counts." With renewed determination, the fleet set off toward the Dominion's stronghold. The odds were against them, but they faced the unknown with hope in their hearts. For the first time, humanity wasn't just fighting to survive. It was fighting to shape its destiny among the stars. And as the ships disappeared into the vastness of space, one thing was certain. Humanity's greatest achievements lay not in conquest, but in the courage to stand together and reach for something greater.